Hi, shalom friends. So how do we stop the killing? That's really the question that everyone is asking. And it's so predictable that immediately it gets shifted to how to stop the killing, immediately shifts into a political argument and into Second Amendment disagreements, and it's all about gun control. And I'm not here to tell you whether or not gun control is the solution, or at least a partial solution, or maybe a Band-Aid. I'm here to share with you a thought, which is a bit controversial, actually. But that is, how do we stop the killing has nothing to do with guns. Let's see if you could connect the dots. There is, in the 1950s, maybe 4% of Americans cremated the departed. Today it's over 68%, I think, and continuing to grow. So we have rising cremation and also abortion. I know it's a hot topic, but abortion is legal. And I read, I believe it was for Amnesty International, something to the effect like 1 out of every 4 women in the world has had one abortion in their lifetime. So 2 things, cremation, abortion. Is there a connection? Another pair. We all know what contraceptives are, birth control, so many different forms of birth control. And we also have the lowering of fertility. People are choosing not to have children, not to have large families, and those that choose to have children, the majority are doing it at a later age, in their early 30s. Is there a connection to the first 2, of abortion and cremation? You say, well, this rabbi, he's just off the wall. What are they all having connection? I'll tell you what I see in common, and that is a lack of appreciation of life. Think about this for a moment. And I would challenge you to actually ask a neighbor. If your neighbor has a pet, or maybe you have a pet, and heaven forbid your pet dies, how likely are you to burn the pet? As far as the little research that I've done, most people create some type of a burial place for their pet, whether it be the backyard or a pet cemetery. Or at the very least, they give it to a vet, and they ask the vet to dispose of it, but don't tell us how you did it. Because to think of taking your beloved dog of 15 years or 11 years and burning it is unthinkable. And yet, over 65%, 68% of people have no difficulty in taking a human being and burning it. I mean, don't you think that's a little bit odd? You see, there's a sacredness to life. And I'm going to actually say it. If you look in chapter 1, and it's verse 26 and verse 27, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. And 27, so God created man in his image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Human life is just not another form of life. Like a salamander is alive, like a tree is alive, like a whale is alive, like an antelope is alive, like it's a different form of life, completely different. Human life is the image of God, and there's a sacredness to that. Even in the past, when there were murderers, that's not a new concept of a person murdering. There was a sense of, I don't know, maybe laws. This murderer would not shoot a child. This murderer would not shoot a woman. This one would certainly not shoot a pregnant woman. Someone else wouldn't shoot an old man. There was some sense of that there's life that should not be taken, even if you're a criminal, even if you're violent. I think we've lost touch with that. Why? Because we don't see human life as anything exceptional. It's alive. That's all. But again, so is the environment around us. What happens when a human being who's just alive and he dies? Well, he's not useful. What do you do with things that are not useful? You discard them. How do you discard them? You throw it in trash or you burn it. When we talk about today, a person could walk into a school and shoot innocent children and shoot beautiful teachers. And we're all concerned about, how did he do it? Why did he? We know what we have to do. Maybe we have to make guns more difficult. But there's a why. How come people today have no standards? Well, even if those that are mentally disturbed, why they used to have some standards. And I could tell you my opinion, which is because the society accepted that human life is sacred. And 50, 60 years ago, to have a debate whether a doctor should help you commit suicide was unthinkable. Doctors are healers. Doctors are here to preserve life. And doctors would do heroic measures to preserve life. That too is out of the window. And then we have the whole issue of euthanasia again. I'm not trying to answer any specific question. What I'm pointing out, in my opinion, is there is a blank, there's an emptiness which is being fed to our generation, which is that man is essentially not any different than a chair, than a pet, than a building, than a work of art. Each one is important in its own right. Where's God in this picture? Where's divinity? Where's sacredness? I'll say something else which is a little bit controversial. Murder is wrong, it's dastardly, it's heinous, it's a crime, but you know what seems to touch us very deeply? When it takes place in a school. And I was thinking, is there a message to this? And I don't know if this is the message, but what occurred to me was, the reason why we're producing murderers is because we have schools where they're not being taught about the dignity of man. And the only way you could talk about the dignity of man is if you associate human life with God, the giver. You take God out of the picture, man is a mammal. We eat chicken, don't we? We eat beef, don't we? People hunt for sport, don't we? Okay, so a human being is a little bit what? A little bit higher on the chain? It's so wrong. And it is so upsetting to see that it's predictable. Another murder, and the issue is guns. The issue is not guns. The issue is people. What's wrong with people today? And the answer is, we're well educated. There's nothing wrong with a person. There's no belief system. There's no appreciation of human life. And for that reason, I see absolutely a correlation between cremation and abortion. I actually do see a correlation where there's a lack of appreciation of life. And if we truly appreciated life, we would see children as a blessing, not something to be postponed, that after we have a career and after we're settled and essentially we're bored and we don't want to travel anymore, now is the time to start a family. If you could bring into this world human life, which is the image of God, why would you want to postpone that? So, how do we stop the killing? Bring back consciousness of God, the giver of life. If we remember the giver of life, we will do everything possible to nourish it and to cultivate it, to enhance it, to improve it. Because each and every one of us would feel that godly spark within ourselves responding to another godly spark. Shalom.